This episode of The Capsule in Conversation is brought to you by Harrogate Springwater. Harrogate is the home of the British Spa and Britain's premium natural source water. Hello everyone, welcome back to The Capsule in Conversation. I'm Natalie Anderson and today I'm joined by one of the most prolific names in dance and entertainment, the fabulous Arlene Phillips, to talk self-love, standing up for what you believe in and setting the world alight. So sit back, relax and get ready to join in with our conversation. Hello all, thank you so much for joining us today. It's my pleasure to have you with us. I hope you're all feeling well and full of excitement at the prospect of being allowed to see friends and family again, albeit still at a safe distance. Hopefully though, it won't be too long now until the rest of the roadmap comes into fruition. I can almost smell the sweat of the nightclubs. And speaking of writhing hot bodies, my guest today certainly knows a thing or two about an epic beat and a full-out routine. From choreographing Elton John, Duran Duran and Whitney Houston to developing her own style of modern jazz in the late 70s that saw her form famed 80s dance troupe Hot Gossip, she's been an influential figure in fashion, theatre, television and film for at least 5 decades. She's sat on the Strictly judging panel and opened and closed the Commonwealth Games. She's an absolute legend who shows no signs of slowing down. It is the incredible, unstoppable Arlene Phillips. Hello, Arlene.
Hi, what a fabulous introduction.
Oh, well, so worthy. I mean, when I was literally like looking through everything, I had goosebumps. I kept saying to my husband, oh my God. And I was just like, I think you need those moments to go back and kind of revisit, and you forget kind of just the breadth of work from being so young to even now, you know, just still dominating in your field. I mean, before we kind of move on into all of that, you know, as a human being though, as a mum and as a grandma, how has lockdown been for you?
Oh, I don't know where to begin. I mean, it feels like everything was taken away simply because I wasn't allowed to see my family and my granddaughter because we live at a distance. And my second granddaughter, I just managed to see before we kind of went into lockdown again, but I haven't really been able to see her. So the lack of family was really hard. And then the loss of all my work. Mm. The fact is that 2020 was a year of such possible creativity. So many kind of new shows which hadn't been done before, would have been a first of its kind. And that all disappeared. My life suddenly felt like it was on hold. And at first I was battling against that. And then now I have just kind of gone with the flow. And even the excitement of where we're going is tinged with a little caution. I don't want to get too excited. I don't want to see my life as exciting ahead. I just want to go, just wait till it happens.
That's so much, Arlene, how I feel at the minute. And I'm so nervous about everybody getting so excited because I don't want to be put back in this situation again. I'm like, we've had so much taken away from us. And, you know, I expect for you who's led this incredible, colourful life that it almost, the colour kind of seeped out a bit. That's how it felt for me. Like suddenly all this creativity and pizzazz, it just felt like we'd gone like that scene in The Wizard of Oz where, you know, but almost gone back into black and white.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That was a show that I choreographed at the London Palladium and a film I've loved totally. But it does feel like a black and white world, and I'm not quite sure what it's going to feel like when we step out of it. I have no idea. So obviously, because of my age, every year passing is like, can I do another year? Can I do another year? Should I do another year? So it's a very, very, very strange, surreal time, actually.
Absolutely. But as you say, fingers crossed, the world will open up again, hopefully. If you and I have our way, it will be cautiously and we're not back in this situation. But as I said in my introduction, your career in entertainment and dance spans over 50 years. I mean, you've worked with some of the most iconic names in showbiz, but your start in life was very far from glamorous, wasn't it? I mean, just tell me about those early years.
My early years were, I suppose, really difficult. I mean, I didn't think about it too much, I suppose, when I was very small, because our house was definitely full of love. My mother was the kindest, sweetest, loving mother that I've always wanted to emulate as her kind of mother and her kind of mothering. But it was difficult. We didn't have much money. My dad worked in a barber shop. Mum had 3 children quite close together. And life was difficult. The money that we didn't have, the things that we couldn't have. Not only were there rations at the time in terms of food, but there were no luxuries in life whatsoever. And, a new pair of shoes when you've grown out of them, or a new coat was like a dream, but you couldn't have a party dress. And I always wanted a party dress. And growing up was difficult. My mother passed away. My father became very sick. I was 15, my sister was 12, brother just 17, he went out to work. Keeping the family together was hard. Being a teenager, the not having at all, not seeing where money was going to come from, is really tough. It's really tough. And when I read now about poverty, or I see in poverty, or I've worked with Save the Children on poverty in the UK, I know what it's like. And to
be one of those children as well that, stands on the sidelines and watches everybody else live almost. And you kind of been in that environment where you're like, but better than to ask, because you wouldn't do that to your mum and dad.
Yeah, I know. The girl down the road had black patent leather shoes. And we used to have, when the soles were wearing thin, we'd have newspaper cut into the shoe, so they could last as long as possible. And you know what it's like with the haves and the don't haves. Yeah. And you never quite feel like you belong when you don't have.
I think so. I mean, if you tell me again, like you went to the Free Trade Hall, was it, to see the concert, the dance concert, and that's where your love of dance kind of flourished from that moment. I mean, tell me about that. That must have been an incredible experience for you, going from, as you said, this world where you didn't have very much to this beautiful scene in front of you.
Yes. My parents loved music, and we had a gramophone, and they played all of the classical composers, Tchaikovsky, the great ballets. And so we listened to music from being tiny. And then there was a concert at the Free Trade Hall in Manchester, and it was all the Russian dancers from the Bolshoi, Kirov, from folk dance. And my parents saved up so that we could all go and see this concert. And we were right at the back of the gods in the Free Trade Hall. And I saw this ballerina come on stage in point shoes doing the Dying Swan. And from that moment, it ignited a fire in me And that's where I wanted to live my life dancing, because to me it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And it became my passion.
And again, as you've said, that money was very tight, but yet it was your uncle that allowed you to kind of go to dance classes when you were 8 years old. But tell me about your green ballet shoes.
Oh my gosh. So there I was going to ballet class. Now, I was an avid reader, and every book I took out of the library, including ballet shoes, it was always about pink ballet shoes. The girls always wore pink ballet shoes. So I assumed that was the only ballet shoes you could get. So my mother took me to get my ballet shoes to go to dance classes. And I tried my ballet shoes on and pointed my toes. And when she found out how much they were, she opened her purse and she didn't have enough money. Now, at that time, there was no credit card you could just bring out. There was nothing you could do. So pink ballet shoes were a no-no. So I thought, I'm going to have to go in my socks. And the man in the shop said, oh, we've got some ballet shoes on sale. If they fit, they're half price, which my mother could afford. And I looked on the shelf, and the ballet shoes, I don't know whether a school had ordered them for all the kids to appear in a show. They were all bright green. Talk about the Wizard of Oz. It looked like the Emerald City on the shelf. Of course they fit me. They had to fit me, didn't they? And I went into my first ballet class with my emerald green ballet shoes. To me, they were ballet shoes. And when I walked in, everyone else had their pink ballet shoes on, or there were two boys in the class, they had black, and me in my emerald green shoes. And I will never forget the look as everyone's eyes turned and looked down at my green ballet shoes and then sort of raised their eyebrows and looked away. And I wanted to run out of the door. I was, wrong time, wrong place, but I didn't. I stuck with it. And I am so glad I had that instinct, that fight instinct. If this is what I want, however I do it, there's got to be a way. And that way may not always be perfect, but I have to do it. And so I stuck with it.
I love that, Arlene. And that's exactly why I wanted to ask you about those shoes, because I was just like, wow, that's incredible. And do you think that it was moments like that that really helped you become steely in your determination, but also helped you have that, as you just said then, that self-discipline of going, no, I have to do it like this?
I think it was something that I almost wasn't aware of how it happened. I didn't really think it through. Of course, now I know that when you want something so much that nothing will stop you. And I always advise people that way when they're having, problems or troubles or, wanting to dance, it's about that want and that need. And it must never go away. You have to see your goal, and you can't lose sight of it. And whatever it takes, whatever you have to do to make it happen, you have to do it. You're not aware, I don't think, when you're young, where it comes from. It's only as you get older you realise.
And do you think in that you've had to make a lot of sacrifices as well then to kind of keep with that goal?
I've made a lot of sacrifices, but in some ways, again, it's when you look back on them. Because at the time, it's the only thing you can do. It isn't a sacrifice. There's no other path, no other road open. So you have to do it. You don't think about the sacrifice.
I mean, you moved, to London when you were really quite young. How was that for you, going from being in Manchester and that area to kind of being in the bright lights of London at such a young age?
Well, it was, after my mother passed away, and then, I just, stayed until my sister had left school and got a job. And once I was in London, nothing was going to stop me achieving my dream. I found the most amazing teacher who gave me a scholarship to her classes, and I found the most extraordinary way to start earning a living. That was finding a living job, helping to care for a child, and, you know, cleaning, being there, babysitting, didn't matter what it was. Luckily for me, my job, although I hadn't realised it at the time, was with Ridley Scott, the incredible director. So, you know, he opened my eyes to so much. It was just remarkable. And I learned new styles of dance, new styles that I've never learned in Manchester, and broadened my ability to do so many different styles of dance, and eventually began teaching because I was passionate about, you know, teaching other people to do what I know.
I mean, that style, that modern jazz style that, to be honest, has become so synonymous with you and really framed like the late 70s, early 80s, you know, that was a time for really experimenting, wasn't it? But what would you say was the main influence for you in kind of developing that style?
I think it started with the lessons that I did with Molly Malloy, for sure. You know, her style of jazz was extraordinary, and it mixed in classical and contemporary. It was a very different form of jazz than, you know, what people think of as jazz, you know, jazz hands. But also, as I was teaching and earning money and started to choreograph a couple of commercials, the influence of what was going on outside of a dance studio, the clubs, the streets, the fashions, the change in movement and dance seemed to be so far ahead of anything that I saw on TV, where dancing was still, you know, lovely, beautiful looking girls, mostly blonde, you know, with lovely smiles and you know, what I considered to be old fashioned compared to what was going on in the clubs. So I think between, you know, the style of dance that I was doing and the influence of what was going on in the street, wanting to bring that street culture into this world of television, I think, you know, if anything, sort of magazines and the streets were my biggest influence to bring that into dance.
I mean, obviously, you know, many people will know that you formed Hot Gossip, which at the time, they were such a risque troupe, you know, dance troupe of incredible women, and were on the Kenny Everett show. And I went back and had a look at some of those videos and was just like, wow, it was just the artistry and just how creative and how bold they were for the time. And, you know, some of the costumes as well. But you know, they were considered risque, but how did you feel about that time? I mean, tell me how you actually got the whole thing together.
The way it came together were, I used the best students in my class that weren't working, and, you know, decided that I was going to put this dance group together. Now, at first, there wasn't a lot of money around, so I thought, oh, if we get lingerie and dye it different colours, you know, dip dye. You know, it looked like we got loads of changes of costumes. One of the boys that was studying with me, Roy Gale, was working in a sex shop at the time. And I went to visit and saw these great costumes. And his boss said, well, you pick and choose a few. So I've put together this dance group, and I wanted to call them Hot Gossip because I wanted everyone to talk about them. I thought, yes, I'm bringing this new street look and dance and sex into the world, which it was a very, very sexy time. The clubs, the sort of language of the streets, the King's Road, everything was happening outside of this world of dance. And I thought everyone was going to fall in love with the group. We managed to get a job, and it was one night a week in a club on Jermyn Street called Monkberry's. And it was the place where everybody who was everybody went. And they read a magazine called Ritz, which told you what was happening in London. And although I had tried to get the group on television, every director or producer I brought to the club went, oh, no, too sexy for TV. And I was just about to give up after 3 years of being told no.
Wow.
And Ritz magazine wanted a photograph of the group, and they put the group on the magazine. A director who was about to produce a brand new TV show called the Kenny Everett Video Show saw a photograph of Hot Gossip and said, I want that girl, Arlene Phillips, I want that group for the Kenny Everett Video Show. And everyone thinks we're an overnight success. It wasn't overnight. It was a long time coming. But once Hot Gossip hit the screen, it caused such a revolution, an outrage, a complete sort of wild attack on the group that this should not be on early in the evening. And the press loved it. And so,
how did you feel about that, coming under that kind of criticism? Or did you enjoy it and did you go, yes, this is exactly what I wanted everybody to talk about us?
I mean, absolutely. I've achieved my goal in wanting everyone to talk about them, but it was an avalanche. It was a whirlwind. We even had, a top 10 hit. Sarah Brightman was in the group. She had been signed to a record company as a solo artist, but they wanted her to launch with Hot Gossip. And it was just non-stop, never think of it as being a celebrity. At that time, you didn't really think about that word. It didn't mean anything. But it just meant that we were on television all the time. I was on chat shows. It just changed my life totally, utterly and completely.
And you know what? The influence from that group, you can see it now. When I was watching back, I was like, oh my God, that's like, Jake Shears from the Scissor Sisters, and it's like Roisin Murphy, and it's like Florence Welch, and all these amazing artists that have clearly harked back to that time and pulled the fashion and the movement and just all of that, again, that artistry and that creativity. I mean, I want to go kind of into what you were saying there about the clubs and the street and the, everything, the explosion. I know you watched It's a Sin very recently, as did I, which was just tremendous and amazing. And, you worked very closely with Freddie Mercury, who sadly passed away in 1991 from AIDS. But I just wanted to get your take on that time.
Oh my gosh, I actually lived through sort of the earliest of the AIDS epidemic. I was making a film in Los Angeles called Can't Stop the Music with the Village People. And the Village People, when we started this movie, had been like number one all over the world. But like every movie, takes a long time, really takes 2 years to create, to finish. And sort of when the movie came out, it was certainly not a hit. But making a film, during that time on the film, people started getting ill. Our amazing writer, Bronte Woodard, was ill. They didn't know what. Different boys who were working in the film, dancers, some wrestlers, different people started to become ill, going to hospital, come out. We didn't know with what. And so that was in 1979. When I went back in 1980, early 1980, some of the people I'd worked on in the film were very ill. And it was so unknown at the time. And I'd go round to their house and they would offer me different things. I remember one particular really close friend saying, I've made some soup. I don't know if you'll drink it because I've made it. Another time, another really young boy has said, I've got strawberries. I haven't touched them because no one knew quite what it was or what it meant or how how you can catch it, although it was slowly being revealed. So the loss for me of friends, the loss for me at that time of people that I love. When I came back to the UK, the same thing was happening. And each year, as we went from 80 to 81 to 82 to 83 to 84, everywhere I worked on a film in New York called The Fan. Everywhere, every month, I was hearing of someone. And even when I went to Germany, opening Starlight, it continued right through that period of time. So it was agonizing to watch It's a Sin, absolutely agonizing, because it brought it all back in a way that, of course, I remember, but the more I watched it, I have seen that one of my closest and dearest loves, he was part of the quilt, the original quilt, and I think about that now, and just having that awareness. Really, when I got back to London, I was the one that was the gathering, the Jill, the finding out.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the Jill, like the character that Lydia West plays, is so brilliant. And I really felt at the end of it, like I literally just thought, I want to put that poor girl in therapy because of the loss that she'd experienced. And there must have been hundreds of thousands of Jills. And as you said, you've been one of them. How did you cope at that time with that loss?
To be honest, I didn't. I think you mourn everybody, but for me, there were three that I, to this day, watching that, brought it back. It was there. It was in the room. I was reliving it. And, certainly the night I finished watching, I have become a binge watcher, which I never was. That I could not even bear to. Every step as it was growing closer was a step that I'd been through. And even now I feel I've changed since watching that, because I'm carrying loss. People carry loss, and eventually it's not, you never lose the person, but you lose the ability or you lose those moments when you feel like you just can't carry on. You do carry on, but that has brought back many, many days when it's been unbearable, really, really, truly unbearable. And I'm not sorry that it happened. I'm glad that it happened. I'm glad that I saw it. And I think Russell T Davies did everyone a service by that brilliant piece of work. But it has definitely changed something in me.
I would expect so. It was an incredible, and for anyone that hasn't caught it yet, I would definitely advise you go and check it out. It's an incredible piece of work, so powerful. And for me, I think it was the youth of these beautiful characters. They were so youthful and hopeful, and Ollie Alexander playing Richie was just that youthfulness. And you'd, like as you said, you'd worked with those kind of charismatic characters. You've worked with Elton John and Freddie Mercury and the boys from Duran Duran. In this incredible body of work, because you've worked with the Whitneys as well, what have been your highlights? I mean, which moments have you loved?
Oh my gosh, which moment have I loved? I've worked with so many incredible people. I loved working with Freddie Mercury because he was inventive, creative. There was this sharing of passion into whatever he did. Elton John, I loved and adored, and the sort of the the directors I was working with. And, Elton John was as opposite to Freddie as you can imagine, because Freddie wanted to know everything. Right from the first step, he wanted you there with him, a week or more before the video was going to be shot. What is it? What's the set going to be like? Elton John, don't tell me, I'll just turn up on the day, tell me what to do, But it's gorgeous. And Whitney, doing what was the second video where she had to move and dance. And she was sweet and shy when I worked with her on that first video, How Will I Know? And by the time, I got to New York to do I Want to Dance with Somebody, there was like a new Whitney, confident. I've had so much fortune in my life working with these great artists.
And as you just said then, you must it must be a nice feeling to know that you did help them in a lot of ways, kind of refine that performance, and I'm sure, as you said then, speaking to Whitney about do this or kind of, choreograph this and allowing her to kind of build that confidence. I mean, was that lovely to see and to witness?
Oh, it's fantastic when you work with an artist. Like I worked with Diana Ross, who at first was really, really cautious. And everything was like, how am I going to put it? How am I going to get her to do this? But then there's that moment where it clicks in and she's absolutely got it. And it's such a joy to see that you change someone's attitude to you and to the video they're making. And Tina Turner, Private Dancer, I mean, her career at that time was was kind of not bubbling, not up there. And that whole album that she made and that video, it sort of ignited her career once again. That's a moment I'm really proud of.
And those characters, they're all very big characters, Arlene. Did you ever find, pardon me for saying this, but you seem very small in stature, but yet obviously, you've got this character that just travels. But did you ever feel afraid, or did you just kind of own it like you did with the green ballet shoes?
It was a job. It was my job, and I just had to just come in and know why I was hired to do that job, and just got, everyone to just accept this is the job that they had to do. This was the job I had to do. So let's get on with it.
And did you ever come across anybody that had any diva strops?
Oh, countless times. Countless times. Yeah.
And did you, were you ever accused of being a diva? And how did you respond to that?
I don't think I was ever accused of being a diva. I was at times called She Who Must Be Obeyed.
Oh.
Where everybody had to do what I wanted. But no, I think I try to be more a pacifier than jump in on the argument. I want to get up next day and just, have a good night's sleep. And sometimes if I do get into an argument, I'm concerned that it's going to last and last and last. So I think I like to solve a problem.
I think because the thing with the diva term, it can be taken one of two ways. It can be I've been called it before, and I was so offended and upset and cried myself to sleep because I was like, why would somebody say that? But then at the same time, I think when you assert yourself as a woman, people, as you just said then, she who must be obeyed, people tend to kind of see you a certain way the minute you assert yourself. I mean, have you found that across your career?
Countless times. I've often worked with all male teams, and it isn't easy. It really, really isn't. And particularly like for instance, working with amazing teams, extraordinary teams, like Andrew Lloyd Webber, Richard Stilgoe, John Napier, the Trevor Nunn on Starlight Express, all powerful figureheads, everyone wanting their own thing. Same with the Monty Python team on The Meaning of Life. Every one of them is a star in their own right. And you're this person, and I'm only like small, that's really standing up for what we need right now. Let's just cool it and let's just work out who's going to get what. Because you can't all have everything you want, because what you all want is maybe something different.
That's such a tough role, and I expect it would have been, particularly at that period of time, like you said, with Starlight, in that era, you would have, I expect, come across or been accused of, shall we say, of like what really annoys me now, of being bossy or wanting your own way, and it's like, I'm just doing the job the same as you.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I hear that, wanting your own way, or like, why does every dancer love another female choreographer who I love?
Yeah.
And she's sweet, but she's tough. And also, you're too tough. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm just not funny with it. Maybe I need to brand my tough. But then you forget about thinking how you do something, and you just get on with it.
The thing is, Arlene, I mean, your career speaks for itself. You're clearly doing something incredible in the sense that, yeah, you are standing up for yourself, but also I think as well for women in the workplace, to still be able to have a voice, because it's difficult, and it has been very difficult for lots of women across, different industries to have their voices heard. And it's important that we do stand up for ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And more, we're seeing more women taking leading roles, all female teams, and we just need more of that. We need more of it, from the government to running companies. You need to have a women's perspective, and it's definitely most likely, and often is, a different perspective to the way men look at things.
Absolutely. Now, tell me about your time on Strictly. You were one of the original judges from 2004 to 2008. And I wanted to ask you, do you have any standout contestants from that time, or routines, or?
I love being part of Strictly. I mean, obviously, because it's well documented. I thought Mark Ramprakash was brilliant, sort of this dancing cricketer. To me, I couldn't put two and two together. And, his Argentine tango was absolutely one of the standouts of the show. There were so many. I mean, Natasha Kaplinsky and Brendan Cole. I think they set the show up in a way of, suddenly there's this couple that you could, as an audience member, could fall in love with, this kind of slightly delicate girl just taking to the dance and being swept off her feet by Brendan. And then there was Christopher Parker, who couldn't dance a step but was funny as all hell, and his passo, flying around the room with his cape on, doing no recognizable dance steps. But the audience loved him. And so you have this, which was set up really early on, the ones that can't dance and the audience fall in love with, and those that can dance and just excel in the way they express and improve dances every week. It was, I think, just such a wonderful show. And of course, we can never forget Jill Harpenny's Darren Bennett's
Jive. Amazing. It was the best. It was so good. Yeah. Now sadly you departed, shall we say, the show in 2008, which caused an awful lot of uproar, with many people feeling like you'd been replaced because of your age, which, how did you feel about that at the time?
When I look back, I was in a very, 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 very bad place. I never allowed myself to think about it, simply because the way I found out was a very early morning phone call from Five Live telling me what had happened and would I like to talk to them. When it was like 7 a.m. in the morning, and I had no idea what they were talking about, but also because my manager of many years, who spotted the early hot gossip and really worked hard at pushing hot gossip and was my manager right through Strictly, passed away the day before. So being hit by grief, having no agent manager to deal with the fallout from Strictly, having not been told about it, I didn't realize for myself just quite how damaged I was. But all I could think about is I cannot let losing a job overwhelm my grief for this person that I love so much, who died of cancer, and we haven't really even known that long. So, when I look back, it was a really bad time. Did I have even time to think it was my age? I really didn't know for myself what it was about, just that it just came out of the blue with no knowledge whatsoever of it happening. So it was a tough time, one of those really tough times in my life.
And as you say, your attention was actually over here with, your manager and in your grief. But other people were so enraged equally on your behalf. Harriet Harman discussed it in Parliament as an example of potential ageism in the workplace. I mean, it's over a decade ago now. So how do you feel about it now?
I wish almost that I'd had a chance to have tackled it like an adult. Yes, they're right. We were all on 1 yearly contracts to let me go. But the way that it happened was undeserved. To not have a full statement of why, or even be told why, shuffling about, finding different excuses. But most of all, I felt that by not really having the will and the power and the strength to tackle it, that I let women down. That as a woman, I should have thought about it. I should have demanded why the woman, again, and it had gone and 3 men remained. I should have asked them to analyze it. I should have had the strength to at least ask for reasons. And if not getting a reason, a damn well apology.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I didn't have the strength. I didn't have the will. I was pathetic. I was really...
Oh, you weren't. You were, as you just said then, you were grieving. You were in a different place. And I mean, we have made steps in the last decade towards embracing older women on screen and on television and in higher level management jobs even. There's still a long way to go, isn't there? I mean, but my next question to you is, you are an incredible role model. You are literally like paving the way for so many women coming after you to keep doing what they do and be incredible. I mean, do you take that role model kind of responsibility very seriously?
I'm very active in educating young women of all ages, really, about fulfilling a passion and not giving up and not dropping out because of your age. In terms of television, I think it's really important that young people, children growing up, connect and see people on television of all ages. All ages and, grandmas like I've become. grandmas who look like grandmas. We see a lot of older men on television who look like a grandpa. Women are always trying to stay young, particularly if they want to be on television. They're always trying to disguise themselves. But I do think the voice of older people must be heard, need to be heard, because otherwise they're going to be as kind of a sector of the community whose voices aren't heard. TV, of course online too, are one of the biggest ways voices are heard. And it does need to be people of all ages. Now, in saying that, younger people have to have their opportunities. And as we get older, we do have to be prepared to move on. That's just the way of life. But I do think the voice of older women on television are so vital to young people, vital to hear.
100%. I mean, the wisdom that comes with aging, and the being grounded and reasonable, and just all these other things that come that you can speak to with an older person, and they can advise you in so much of a way that's really helpful and doesn't sensationalize or dramatize. And I think that's, as you said, that voice, it's really important to hear. It's important to be cautious. It's important to equally as well be told to live your life, enjoy, don't be too cautious, which I often find with a lot of older people or older friends that I have. When they reflect, they say, these are the things I wish I'd not done, or these are the things that I wish I'd told my younger self. And they're really important lessons. Receive from an older voice, someone that's been there and done that, and someone that can share their story, because through shared stories, that might affect you in some way. The path that you've traveled may directly influence me or help me in some way.
Yeah. I think so. I definitely want to be a voice. I want to go on being a voice.
But I mean, for the moment, you don't look like you're going to be slowing down anytime soon, Arlene. I mean, you're developing a new musical, the What's New Pussycat Tom Jones musical. I mean, obviously last year you were doing Hair the musical. Just tell me, you've received an OBE, a CBE. We've talked today about the incredible things that you've done. What's next for you? Is there anything left for you? I'm sure there is.
Oh, there's quite a bit left. Obviously, I want to give myself more time to see my grandchildren. I'll definitely do that. But yes, there are exciting things coming up. And now I'm just waiting for all those emails to come in to say, yes, it's going ahead. Yes, it's going ahead. And there are some lovely projects coming up. Creative. I want to be creative still.
Oh, and to anyone out there who might find themselves in difficult circumstances, but they have a dream, what would you say to them?
Never give up on your dreams. Never, ever. Just find that little box in your mind that holds that dream and keep pursuing it. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to contact people. Don't be afraid to find ways to help, to be in touch with people. We can communicate so well now. We have the ability to reach people that, in my time you could have only dreamed of. You could write a letter and that letter got thrown away, but you can message people. You can reach. Don't stop reaching out and hold on to the dream.
Oh, thank you so much, Arlene. It's been an absolute joy to talk to you today. I mean, literally, there are so many things I could have talked to you about, but it's hard to squeeze into an hour. Thank you so much for your time and your incredible advice.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. And who knows, part 2.
Yay! Oh my God, I would love that. Yes. At post-lockdown with Arlene. Yeah. Amazing. Yes.
Yeah, and then you'll hear about the wonderful things that I'm going to do.
Yes. Oh God. Well, you're absolutely more than welcome. So just we'll keep you posted, guys. I hope that you guys at home have enjoyed being with us today and have been inspired by our chat. I'm going to go and throw on my sequins and my fashion and get all fabulous right now. And if you'd like to follow Arlene on her next adventures, then you can find her on Instagram at Arlene Phillips. If you'd like more fashion, well-being and beauty, then you can always visit us at our website, www.thecapsule.co.uk, where you can also catch up with our previous podcast episodes by visiting the In Conversation page and subscribing to any of our podcast channels and YouTube. Do leave us your rates and reviews. I love hearing your feedback. It's always amazing to see your lovely comments. If you're a social butterfly, you can also catch us on Instagram and Facebook at Official Capsule. I will be back next week with another very special guest. So all that's left for us today is to say goodbye. So it's goodbye from Arlene.
Bye.
And goodbye from me. This episode of The Capsule in Conversation was brought to you by Harrogate Spring Water. Bottled at source, Harrogate Spring offers a pure, refreshing taste with a delicate blend of naturally occurring minerals and electrolytes, perfect for healthy hydration.